It started with a knock I didn't hear. Only the envelope taped to my front door told me someone had been there. The kind of envelope that doesn't need a return address because you already know who it's from. HOA, 3 letters that now make my stomach tighten faster than any unpaid bill ever could. It was a bright Saturday morning. Coffee in one hand, slippers half on, when I peeled that notice off the door. The paper was folded twice, sharp creases like it had been handled by someone proud of their authority. Violation 203B. Property aesthetic non-compliance. Unapproved garden fixtures. I laughed. Out loud. Because the unapproved fixture in question? A small gnome. Not even a creepy one. Just a cheerful, red-hatted little guy holding a watering can next to my roses. But apparently, Mr. Gnome was an unauthorized decorative element visible from the street. I remember thinking, surely this is a joke. Surely they have better things to do. So I did what any rational human would do. I called the HOA office, and that's when I first heard her voice. Karen, the HOA president. She spoke like someone who'd just swallowed a thesaurus of superiority. Sir, we have regulations for a reason. You agreed to them when you moved here. Perhaps you'd like me to email you the aesthetic standards document again. No, thank you, I said, trying to sound calm. I just didn't realize ceramic happiness was a federal offense. Excuse me? Nothing, I muttered. She told me I had 72 hours to remove the gnome, or face a fine. I hung up thinking that would be the end of it. I mean, come on, it's a gnome. But the next morning there was another letter. This time, the violation had escalated. Apparently, defensive communication is also a punishable act in HOA world. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or start installing hidden cameras. That night, I sat on the porch, staring at my yard, the quiet street glowing under the lamplight. Somewhere down the block, I saw her silhouette. Karen, clipboard in hand, flashlight cutting through the dark like she was searching for a fugitive. My wife whispered behind me, "She's watching us, isn't she?" I nodded. Yeah, but I'm starting to think she's not watching the house. She's watching me. And that's when the motion sensor light flicked on, right over our gnome. Someone had moved it. The next morning, the gnome was gone. Not knocked over, not stolen, just gone. Like someone had carefully lifted it and vanished into the night. At first, I thought maybe one of the neighbor kids had taken it as a prank. But then, I saw the footprint. A perfect crisp print right where the mulch met the concrete. A wedge heel. Karen's shoes. She wore the same pair at every HOA meeting. I told my wife. She didn't just write us up. She took it. My wife sighed, pouring her coffee like she was too tired for another round of suburban warfare. "Please don't start something," she said. "Just let it go." I wanted to. I really did. But the more I thought about it, the more it burned. It wasn't just a gnome anymore. It was the principle. That afternoon, I walked to Karen's house. It was only 3 doors down, perfectly manicured, every blade of grass standing at attention. The flagpole gleamed like it was waxed daily. I knocked once. The sound echoed hollow and sharp. The door creaked open, and there she was. Crisp polo, clipboard still in hand. "Oh," she said, feigning surprise. "It's you. How can I help you again?" "Hi," I said, forcing a smile. "My garden gnome disappeared last night. You didn't happen to see anything unusual, did you?" She tilted her head like a cat hearing something beneath the floorboards. "A garden gnome? No. But I did notice your front hedge is 2 inches over the height regulation. I'll make a note of it." "You're kidding." I don't joke about compliance. Something about the way she said it, slow, deliberate, made my skin crawl. When I walked back home, I noticed something taped to our mailbox. Another letter. This one was shorter. "Consider this your final warning. Further disruptions will result in board action." Disruptions. That word stuck with me because I hadn't done anything. That night, I set up my old security camera, one of those doorbell cams I'd never bothered installing. I angled it right toward the front garden. If Karen wanted to play this game, I'd play it better. At 1:47 a.m., the alert went off. Someone was in the yard. I grabbed my phone. The live feed was grainy but clear enough. There she was, Karen, kneeling beside the rose bushes, flashlight clenched in her teeth, writing something on her clipboard. Then she looked straight into the camera, right into the lens, and smiled. The next morning, the footage was gone. Deleted. By Monday, the entire neighborhood knew. Not about the gnome, about me. Rumors spread faster than lawn fertilizer in spring. Apparently, I'd harassed the HOA president, tampered with surveillance, and jeopardized community harmony. That last phrase sounded exactly like something Karen would type while sipping her herbal tea. Then came the email. Mandatory appearance at the HOA board meeting Thursday 7:00 p.m. Topic: Resident Conduct and Compliance Review. The words mandatory appearance felt more like a court summons than a neighborhood meeting. But fine, I'd go. Thursday night arrived grey and heavy, rain smearing the streetlights into streaks across my windshield. The community centre smelled like lemon cleaner and judgment. 5 board members sat behind a folding table, papers neatly stacked, mugs labelled HOA Life. And at the centre, of course, was Karen. Hair pulled tight, expression tighter. "Mr. Stevens," she began, "we're here to discuss your repeated violations and inappropriate behaviour toward members of this association." I took a slow breath. "You mean toward you, right?" A murmur rippled through the room. She smiled politely. "Let's keep this civil, shall we?" I reached into my jacket and placed my phone on the table. "Sure, but before we do, maybe you'd like to explain this?" I played the short clip I'd managed to recover from my cloud backup. 15 seconds of grainy video showing Karen in my yard, past midnight, flashlight in mouth, scribbling something. Her face drained. "That's taken out of context. Really? What's the context for breaking into my property with office supplies?" A board member on the left, Mr. Davis, who always looked like he regretted being born into suburbia, cleared his throat. "Karen, maybe we should table this." But she snapped. "No! This resident has been antagonizing me since day one. He mocks the rules, installs unapproved items, and spies on me." "Spies on you? You literally looked into my camera." The room buzzed like a hornet's nest. People whispering, someone coughed. Finally, Davis leaned forward. "Karen, this looks bad. Maybe we should..." She slammed her hand on the table. "You don't understand. He's trying to destroy the integrity of this neighborhood." Silence. Even the rain outside had stopped, like the world was holding its breath. Then, almost theatrically, she turned to me and said, "You want your precious gnome back? Fine." She reached into her oversized tote bag and pulled out the little red-hatted figure. Right there, in front of everyone. Gasps filled the room. Someone whispered. She took it. Karen froze, realizing what she'd just done. Her hand trembled slightly as she set the gnome on the table. "Evidence," she muttered. "I was collecting evidence." The board chair looked at her like she'd just confessed to arson. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about me anymore. This was about control, and she was losing it. But as I turned to leave, Karen leaned in close enough for only me to hear. "This isn't over." The walk home felt surreal. Neighbors peeked from their windows, some nodding in sympathy, others whispering like the world had become a reality show, and I was the unwitting star. Back at my house, the gnome sat on the porch step, blinking innocently under the porch light. But I couldn't shake Karen's words. "This isn't over." Tuesday morning brought a knock. Slow, deliberate. I opened the door. No one. Just another envelope. Notice of additional compliance review. Immediate action required. See attached. Attached was a full 12-page document detailing community standards, with a fine print clause I hadn't noticed in my HOA agreement. Residents are prohibited from interfering with HOA governance or obstructing officers in the course of duty. I laughed. Sort of. My laughter sounded more like panic. Interfering. Obstructing. I'd only installed a garden gnome and politely asked why someone had trespassed in my yard. Then came the confrontation. Karen appeared at my door, clipboard like armor. "I think we need to have a serious conversation." I took a deep breath. "Fine, let's talk. Outside." She followed me to the sidewalk, clipboard clutched tightly. "This behavior," she said, voice sharp as a knife, "is unacceptable. You've undermined my authority and disrupted neighborhood harmony." "I put a gnome in my garden, that's it." "And that gnome is symbolic," she said, eyes narrowing. "Symbolic of your rebellion. And you know what happens when symbolism undermines order." I stared at her, and suddenly I wasn't afraid. "You've gone too far, Karen. You broke the rules you swore to enforce. You trespassed, you harassed, and you manipulated the board. This ends now." Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment I thought she might argue. Then she paused and walked away. The neighborhood seemed to exhale with me. Across the street, kids played, sprinklers sprayed, and somewhere, a dog barked, as if celebrating victory. I placed the gnome back among the roses, right where it belonged. A small triumph, but a victory nonetheless. Weeks later, the HOA sent a notice. Karen had resigned, citing personal reasons. The board was forced to admit that some actions had been inappropriate, a euphemism that barely captured the chaos. I still see her sometimes, driving past, clipboard replaced with a coffee cup. But now, when I step outside, I don't feel eyes watching. The roses sway in the breeze, sunlight glinting off the gnome's red hat. And sometimes, just sometimes, I swear I can hear her muttering behind a closed gate. This isn't over. But for now, it is. If this story felt a little too real, hit like. It shows you're with the people who refuse to be pushed around. Subscribe to Karen Edition so you never miss another moment where justice finally hits back. And tell me in the comments, if this happened to you, what would you have done?